Welcome to my channel. Today's story will take you on a journey of mystery, heartbreak, and an unexpected twist of fate. If you love emotional stories with suspense and powerful life lessons, make sure to like, share, and subscribe so you never miss the next part. The night was unusually quiet. The city's neon lights flickered in the distance, but in the forgotten alleys on the edge of town, darkness reigned. A cold wind swept through the broken windows of an abandoned warehouse, rattling loose sheets of metal, carrying with it a sense of dread. That's where Amina, a poor, black girl with little more than torn shoes and a determined heart, wandered, searching for scraps of metal or wood she could sell the next day. Life had not been kind to her. She had no family left, no friends she could rely on, and barely enough food to silence the growl in her stomach. Yet in her eyes, there was always a strange spark, an unyielding hope that something, someday, would change. As she rummaged through a pile of old crates, her ears caught a sound. Thud, thud, muffled, weak, like someone pounding, desperate from behind a wall. Her breath froze. At first, she thought it was rats, or maybe the creak of the warehouse itself. But then it came again, louder this time, followed by something else. A voice. Faint, strained, but human. Help! Someone, please. Amina's eyes darted around until they landed on a large, dust-covered trunk shoved into the corner of the room. Its iron latches were rusted, its surface dented, but the sound, the desperate knocking, was coming from inside. Her heart pounded so hard she thought her chest might burst. Fear and curiosity clashed within her. What if it was dangerous? What if she opened it and found something she wasn't supposed to see? Still, her hands moved on their own. Kneeling, she pressed her ear to the trunk. "Hello? Who's in there?" she whispered. For a moment there was silence. Then the voice, a man's voice, rough and weak. "Please, get me out. I can't breathe." Amina's hands trembled as she struggled with the rusty latches. It took every ounce of her strength, scraping her palms raw, until finally, click. The trunk creaked open, releasing a suffocating wave of stale air. Inside, curled up like a prisoner of war, was a man. His clothes were disheveled but expensive. Tailored suit pants, a silk shirt stained with sweat. His wrists bore the red marks of ropes that had been cut away. His face was pale, unshaven, and drenched in sweat. But his eyes, sharp, piercing, even in his weakened state, were unlike anything she had ever seen. They didn't belong to a poor man or even an ordinary one. They carried the weight of power. Amina stumbled back, covering her mouth. The man coughed, struggling to sit up, his voice hoarse. "Thank God. You found me. Who are you?" she whispered, her fear rising. His lips curved into something between a grimace and a smirk. "My name is Adrian Blackwell." The name meant nothing to her. She shook her head. He let out a bitter laugh that turned into another cough. "Of course, you don't know me, but the rest of the world does. I'm a millionaire, or I was. Before they tried to get rid of me," her eyes widened. "Millionaire?" "Yes," he rasped, gripping the edge of the trunk. "And if you hadn't opened this, I would have died here." Amina's mind spun. What was a millionaire doing locked inside an abandoned trunk in the poorest part of town? And why had she, of all people, been the one to find him? Why were you in there?" she asked cautiously. Adrian's gaze darkened. "Because someone wanted me gone. Someone close. And if they find me alive..." His voice trailed off. For the first time, he looked at her properly. His tired eyes scanned her face, the dirt smudged on her cheeks, the frayed edges of her clothes, the hollowness of hunger etched into her expression. And then something shifted in his stare. Shock, recognition, almost as if her face had struck a hidden memory inside him. He whispered, barely audible, "It's you." Amina froze. "Me? What are you talking about? I don't even know you." But his eyes filled with something between disbelief and awe, as though fate itself had played a cruel joke. His reaction to her face wasn't just surprise. It was the kind of reaction that carried weight, danger, and destiny. Adrian's breath grew ragged. He gripped her wrist with surprising strength for a man who had just escaped suffocation. "You don't understand," he said, voice trembling. Your face? It's the reason my life will never be the same again. Amina's heart thudded painfully in her chest. She wanted to pull away, to run, but his words had rooted her in place. Before she could question him further, the screech of tires echoed outside the warehouse. Headlights cut through the cracks in the broken walls. Men's voices, angry, searching, filled the night. Adrian's grip tightened. His eyes were fierce now, desperate. They've found me. If they see you with me, you'll be in danger too. Amina's breath caught. Danger? From who? The voices grew louder, footsteps crunching on gravel, coming closer. Adrian leaned in, his whisper urgent. Hide me, and if they ask, you've seen nothing. Do you hear me? Nothing. Amina's pulse raced as shadows moved just beyond the warehouse doors. She had stumbled into something far bigger, far darker than she ever imagined. And in that moment, she realized her life would never be the same again. The warehouse doors groaned open with a metallic shriek. Flashlights cut through the dusty air, beams slicing across broken crates and shattered glass. Heavy boots stomped against the concrete, echoing like war drums. Amina's breath hitched. She crouched lower behind a stack of crates, dragging Adrian down with her. His body was heavy, still weak from his confinement, but his grip on her wrist was iron. The men's voices grew clearer. Check every corner. He couldn't have gone far. Boss wants him alive, but barely. A chill ran through Amina's veins. Whoever these men were, they weren't searching for some ordinary runaway. They were hunting Adrian like prey. Adrian's lips brushed close to her ear, his whisper sharp and urgent. Do not make a sound. No matter what you hear. Her heart pounded so loudly she was certain they would hear it. She had nothing to defend herself with, no weapon, no plan. All she had was instinct and the inexplicable pull to protect this stranger whose very name meant nothing to her, but whose eyes had pierced into her soul like a curse. The men spread out, their beams sweeping the warehouse. Dust swirled in the air like ghosts. One of them stopped near the very crates they hid behind. Amina clutched her chest, praying her heartbeat wouldn't give them away. The man leaned closer, his flashlight beam inches from their hiding spot. He squinted, suspicious, sniffing the air as though danger itself carried a scent. Adrian's hand tightened on Amina's shoulder. She glanced at him, ready to bolt, but his expression was deadly calm, as though he had stared death in the eye before and lived to tell the tale. After what felt like an eternity, the man turned away. Nothing here. Move on! Relief flooded Amina's chest, but too soon. From outside, a voice bellowed. Remember, he's not alone. Our informant said someone might have helped him. Check for anyone suspicious. No one leaves alive until we find him. Amina's stomach dropped. Not alone. They already suspected someone had freed him. That someone was her. The footsteps grew distant, but the threat lingered in the shadows. Adrian leaned heavily against the crate, trying to steady his breath. His eyes, though dimmed with exhaustion, still burned with that same piercing intensity. You shouldn't be here, he muttered. You shouldn't have opened that trunk. Amina glared at him, her whisper sharp. I couldn't just leave someone to die. A bitter smile flickered across his lips. Compassion is a dangerous luxury in my world. His words hung heavy. But before she could respond, he reached out, brushing his trembling fingers across her face as if confirming she was real. There it is again, he murmured. That face. I don't understand. Amina swatted his hand away, anger sparking through her fear. Stop saying that! I don't know you. I've never seen you before in my life. But Adrian's gaze didn't waver. Instead, his expression darkened, haunted. You may not know me, but I know you. Or at least, I know the face that cursed me. Her breath caught. What do you mean? Adrian's voice lowered, his words laced with venom and sorrow. Years ago, someone betrayed me. They destroyed everything I had, my family, my empire, my peace. And before they did, they wore a face like yours. Amina shook her head, confusion swirling like a storm. That doesn't make any sense. How could I? Before she could finish, another crash echoed from the far side of the warehouse. The men were getting closer again. Adrian tried to rise, but his legs buckled. Instinct took over. Amina slung his arm over her shoulder and guided him toward a broken side door. Every step was a battle, his weight dragging her down, but something inside her refused to leave him behind. As they stumbled into the night, the cool air struck their faces like freedom, but the sound of shouts erupted behind them. There! They're running! A beam of light slashed across the darkness, catching the edge of Adrian's torn shirt. Amina's pulse roared in her ears. She yanked him forward, her legs burning as they sprinted through the maze of abandoned streets. Adrian stumbled, coughing, but she refused to let go. Bullets cracked through the night, ricocheting off metal and stone. Adrian gritted his teeth, his voice hoarse. They won't stop. Not until one of us is dead, the word struck Amina like ice. She didn't understand his world, his enemies, or why he was hunted. But one thing was clear. By saving him, she had entangled herself in a deadly game. They ducked into another alley, pressing themselves against the wall as the men thundered past. For a moment, silence returned, broken only by their ragged breaths. Amina turned to him, fury and fear colliding in her chest. "What are you dragging me into? Who are these people? Why are they after you?" Adrian met her eyes, his face shadowed but his voice steady. "They're the ones who put me in that trunk. Former allies, business partners turned enemies, men who believe the world belongs to them. I was in their way, so they erased me." Her brows furrowed. "And me? Why do you look at me like I'm part of this?" He hesitated. For the first time, his confident mask cracked, revealing something fragile beneath. "Because your face, it's the face of the woman who betrayed me, the one I trusted most, the one who nearly killed me." Amina's world spun. "That's impossible. I've never betrayed anyone." "I don't even know you?" Adrian's jaw clenched. "Maybe not you, but someone tied to you, a past you don't know about, or a truth no one has told you." The weight of his words crushed her. Questions clawed at her mind. Who was this woman he spoke of? Could it be a relative she never knew? A family secret buried in the ashes of her poverty? Before she could ask, shouts erupted again, closer this time. They were running out of time. Adrian gripped her hand tightly, his voice urgent. "If you stay with me, your life will never be the same. They'll come after you too. You can still walk away. Right now." Amina stared at him, her heart pounding. Every rational thought screamed at her to run, to save herself. Yet something deeper, something she couldn't explain, kept her rooted to him. Her voice trembled but carried steel. "I already opened the trunk. I already saved you. I'm not walking away now." Adrian's eyes widened, surprise flickering into something almost like respect. Before he could reply, a shadow fell across the alley. A gun clicked. "There you are!" A tall figure stepped forward, his face hidden under a hood, his weapon trained on them both. Behind him, more men appeared, sealing the exits. Amina's breath caught. Trapped, the hooded man smirked. "The boss will be pleased. The lost millionaire, and the girl foolish enough to save him." Adrian's jaw tightened. He stepped in front of Amina, shielding her despite his weakness. His voice dropped to a dangerous whisper. "Run when I say, don't look back." But Amina couldn't tear her eyes from the hooded man. Something about his stance, his voice, it felt chillingly familiar. And then, as the light shifted, she saw his face. Her world shattered. It wasn't just any man. It was someone from her past. Someone she thought she'd never see again. The hooded man stepped forward, and as the dim light from a flickering street lamp hit his face, Amina's blood ran cold. "Marcus," she whispered, her voice barely audible. He smirked, lowering the gun just slightly as though savoring her shock. Well, didn't think I'd find you here, little sister." Her knees nearly gave way. She hadn't heard that name in years, not since her brother had vanished, leaving her to fend for herself in the cruelest corners of the city. Adrian stiffened beside her, his sharp gaze darting between them. "Your brother?" Amina swallowed hard, her heart pounding in her ears. "Yes, but he's supposed to be gone," Marcus chuckled darkly. "Oh, I'm very much here. And unlike you, I don't scrape for scraps in alleys anymore. I chose a side, the winning side." Adrian's jaw tightened, fury flashing in his eyes. You were one of them." Marcus tilted his head, his grin widening. "One of the ones who locked you away? Guilty as charged. And honestly, you should have stayed in that trunk. Would have saved us all the trouble. Amina's mind spun. Her own flesh and blood, the boy she once protected, once starved for, was now standing on the side of men who hunted Adrian. Marcus. Why? She whispered, her voice trembling. We were all we had. You left me. You abandoned me. His smirk faltered for the briefest moment, but it quickly hardened. I was tired of being nothing. Tired of watching us rot while the world feasted. These men, Adrian's enemies, they gave me power. A purpose. And you know what? I like it. He raised the gun again, the metallic click echoing like a death sentence. And now you're standing in my way. Adrian stepped forward, his weakened body trembling, but his voice steady, cold. If you want her, you'll have to go through me. Marcus's laughter cut through the tension like a blade. Look at you, barely standing. Do you even know who she is to you? Or has the truth not sunk in yet? Adrian's brow furrowed. What truth? Marcus's smile twisted into something cruel. You keep staring at her like she's a ghost, don't you? Like she's the woman who betrayed you. Maybe that's because, in a way, she is. Amina's breath caught. What are you talking about? Marcus's voice dripped with poison. The woman who destroyed Adrian, who sold his secrets to his enemies, was our mother. The world tilted beneath Amina's feet. No, that's not possible. Our mother, she died when I was little. She couldn't have. Marcus cut her off, his words sharp as knives. She didn't just die, Amina. She made choices before that. Choices that sealed both our fates. She's the reason I joined them. The reason Adrian lost everything. Her betrayal runs in our blood. Adrian's eyes narrowed, his face pale as realization struck him. That's why you look exactly like her. That's why seeing your face is like staring into the past. Amina shook her head violently, tears welling in her eyes. No, I'm not her. I'm not my mother. I didn't betray anyone. Adrian's gaze softened for a moment, conflict flashing across his features. He wanted to believe her. He needed to. But the resemblance was undeniable, and the scars of his past ran deep. Marcus's grip tightened on the gun, his eyes locked on Adrian. None of it matters. Orders are orders. You die here, and maybe I let her live. The other men closed in, forming a wall of shadows around them. Escape was impossible. Amina's mind raced. She couldn't let Adrian die, not after everything. But what could she do against guns and trained killers? She had nothing. Nothing but desperation. Then, like a spark in the dark, she remembered the small pocket knife she kept hidden in her tattered shoe. A tool for scraping metal, but sharp enough to cut if used right. Her hand inched toward it slowly, praying no one noticed. Marcus raised the gun higher, his voice cold. Goodbye, Adrian Blackwell. In that split second, Amina acted. With a burst of courage, she lunged forward, slashing the knife across Marcus's wrist. He roared in pain, the gun clattering to the ground. Chaos erupted. Adrian grabbed her arm, yanking her behind him as he kicked the gun toward the shadows. Men shouted, rushing forward. Adrian, though weak, moved with the instincts of someone who had survived wars in boardrooms and back alleys alike. He shoved one attacker aside, using his weight like a weapon. Amina swung wildly with her knife, fear fueling her every move. Marcus clutched his bleeding wrist, fury blazing in his eyes. You stupid girl! You've just signed your death warrant. He lunged at her, but Adrian intercepted, slamming Marcus against the wall with a strength born of sheer desperation. Their eyes locked, predator against predator. Adrian's voice was low, venomous. You took everything from me. You think I'll let you take her too? For a moment, Marcus faltered, not from fear, but from the raw, unshakable fire in Adrian's eyes. The other men hesitated, uncertain, caught between following Marcus's orders and witnessing Adrian's unyielding defiance. Amina seized the moment. Run! She screamed, grabbing Adrian's arm. Together, they bolted into the night once more, leaving behind chaos, shouts, and Marcus's curses echoing through the alleys. They didn't stop running until their lungs burned and their legs gave out. Collapsing near an abandoned church, Amina fell to her knees, gasping for air. Adrian leaned against the crumbling wall, his chest heaving, his eyes never leaving her. You saved me, he whispered, almost in disbelief. Amina's tears spilled, streaking her dirt-stained cheeks. "I don't even know why, but I couldn't let them take you." Adrian's gaze softened for the first time since she had found him. "And that's why you're nothing like her." The silence that followed was heavy, filled with questions neither of them dared to voice. But one truth was clear. Their lives were now bound together, tangled in a web spun long before Amina was even born. And somewhere in the shadows, Marcus was bleeding, seething, and swearing vengeance. The abandoned church smelled of mildew and dust, its stained glass windows shattered long ago, leaving jagged teeth of colored glass that caught the moonlight. The silence pressed down on Amina like a weight, broken only by the rasp of Adrian's labored breathing. He sat slumped against the wall, his shirt torn, his body bruised and weak. Yet even now, his presence filled the room, commanding and unyielding. He looked less like a victim and more like a king who had been forced into exile. Amina sat across from him, hugging her knees to her chest, her thoughts a whirlwind. Her brother was alive. Her mother, the woman she barely remembered, was somehow tied to this powerful man's downfall. And Adrian's eyes! They looked at her with both suspicion and something else she couldn't name. Finally, she broke the silence. "Tell me everything." Adrian's gaze flickered to her, sharp and probing. "Everything?" "Yes," she said firmly, though her voice trembled. "You said my mother betrayed you, that she destroyed your life. I deserve to know how." He leaned his head back against the wall, closing his eyes for a moment as though the memories were knives. When he spoke, his voice was low, heavy with bitterness. "Years ago, I was at the top. My company controlled industries, shipping, oil, real estate. I was untouchable, but power breeds enemies. They couldn't take me down alone, so they found someone close, someone who could slip through my walls." Amina's chest tightened. "Your mother," he continued, "was that someone. She came to me under a different name. She was beautiful, intelligent, persuasive. I trusted her more than I trusted anyone. And in return for that trust, she handed my secrets to my enemies. The deals I was making, the safe houses I kept, even the people loyal to me. She delivered it all. By the time I realized, my empire had already begun to collapse. My friends were dead. My rivals were richer. And I was left. Alone." Amina's throat closed. She had no memory of her mother being that kind of woman. All she remembered was a soft voice, lullabies sung in the dark, and then nothing. "That can't be true," she whispered. She wasn't like that. She couldn't have been." Adrian's eyes snapped open, blazing with a fury that made her flinch. "Do you think I imagined the knife in my back? Do you think I mistook her face when she disappeared with the men who wanted me dead? That betrayal burned itself into my soul, and now I see that same face every time I look at you." Tears blurred Amina's vision. She hated it, hated that her mother's shadow haunted her, hated that Adrian couldn't look at her without remembering the worst pain of his life. But beneath his anger, there was something else in his eyes. A war. He wanted to push her away, to brand her as guilty by blood, but he couldn't. Because in saving him, she had done the opposite of betrayal. Her voice shook, but it carried defiance. "I'm not her. You said it yourself. I saved you. If I was like her, you'd still be rotting in that trunk." Adrian's jaw tightened, but he didn't argue. Instead, he looked away, his silence louder than any words. The night stretched on, heavy with unspoken truths. When dawn broke, pale light spilled through the broken windows, casting long shadows on the cracked floor. Adrian tried to stand, but his legs buckled. "Careful," Amina said quickly, rushing to his side. He caught himself on the wall, breathing hard. "We can't stay here. Marcus will find us. And when he does, he won't hesitate again." The mention of her brother's name sent a knife of grief through her chest. "Why is he with them? Why would he do this?" Adrian's expression hardened. "Because power is seductive. And your brother, he saw an opportunity to rise, even if it meant selling his soul." Amina shook her head. "No, he wasn't always like that. When we were kids, he protected me. He used to tell me he'd never let anyone hurt me. He wasn't cruel." Adrian's voice was sharp, almost cruel itself. "People change. Or maybe they simply reveal who they always were. Her heart twisted, but she had no answer. They set out again, moving through the deserted streets as the city stirred awake in the distance. Amina kept glancing at Adrian, noticing the way his eyes scanned every shadow, the way his body tensed at every sound. He lived in a constant state of war. At last, they reached a crumbling building that had once been a safe house of Adrian's. Inside, hidden beneath rotting floorboards, he uncovered a small metal case. With shaking hands, he opened it to reveal stacks of money, passports, and a gun. Amina stared. "You kept this hidden?" Adrian gave a bitter laugh. "When you live my life, you always keep a way out. Problem is, I never thought I'd need it." He handed her a bundle of money. "Take it. You can disappear. Start over." "Forget me. Forget all of this." Amina froze. "You want me to leave?" His eyes met hers, conflicted but firm. "If you stay, you'll be hunted. They'll use you against me. Your brother already has. The safest thing for you is to walk away." Her throat ached. Part of her wanted to take the money, to run as far as her legs could carry her, to escape the nightmare. But another part, the part that had opened the trunk, that had refused to abandon him, couldn't. Her voice cracked, but it carried steel. "No, I'm not leaving you." "Not now." Adrian's breath caught. For a moment, the mask of the cold, hardened millionaire slipped, revealing a flicker of vulnerability. "You don't understand what you're saying," he murmured. "I do," she insisted. "I don't care what my mother did. I don't care what Marcus has become. I'm not them. And I'm not letting you fight this alone." The silence stretched between them, thick with emotion. Finally, Adrian let out a long, weary sigh. "Then you've just bound your fate to mine," he said softly. Before Amina could respond, a loud crash shattered the fragile moment. The front door exploded inward, splintering under the force of a boot. Shouts filled the building. Marcus's voice cut through them all. "End of the line, sister. This time no running." Amina and Adrian froze, their eyes locking. There was no escape left. No more hiding. This was the moment that would decide everything. The door crashed open and Marcus strode in with a band of armed men at his back. His wounded wrist was wrapped in a makeshift bandage, but his smirk was sharper than ever. "Did you really think you could run from me, sister?" he sneered. "Or from the people who own me?" Amina stepped forward before Adrian could stop her, her small frame trembling but her eyes burning. "Marcus, please. This isn't you. You don't have to do this." Marcus laughed, a bitter sound that echoed in the ruined walls. "Oh, it's exactly me. The world spit on us, Amina, left us to starve. But these men, they gave me power, wealth, respect, things you could never dream of. Why would I throw that away?" Her voice cracked, but she pressed on. "Because we're family. I'm your sister." For a split second, something flickered in his eyes. Doubt, guilt, memory. But then it hardened into stone. Family means nothing when survival is on the line. Behind him, his men raised their weapons. Adrian instinctively stepped in front of Amina, his own gun drawn from the safehouse stash. His body was weak, but his stance was unshakable. "Touch her, and I'll put you in the ground myself," he growled. Marcus smirked. "Funny. That's exactly what our mother said before she sold you out." The words cut through Adrian like a blade, his jaw tightening, fury flashing in his eyes. Amina gasped, the truth finally cracking open. "Our mother, she really betrayed you?" Adrian's voice was cold as steel. "Yes, she was their inside hand. Without her, they never could have destroyed me." Marcus stepped closer, his gun leveled at Adrian's chest. "She was smart enough to pick the winning side. And now I'm following her path." "No!" Amina said fiercely, tears streaming down her face. "You're following her mistakes." Her words hung heavy in the air, silencing even the men behind Marcus. For the first time, Marcus's smirk faltered. Amina's voice rose, trembling but powerful. "She destroyed Adrian. She destroyed you. And now you want to destroy me? If you pull that trigger, Marcus, you'll prove you're no better than the people who used her. You'll prove you're already gone." The silence stretched, broken only by Marcus's ragged breathing. His finger twitched on the trigger, then Adrian moved. In one swift motion, he shoved Amina aside and fired. The gunshot echoed like thunder, the flash lighting Marcus's face for a split second of raw shock. Marcus stumbled back, clutching his shoulder, blood blooming through his jacket. His men froze, uncertain, their loyalty shaken by the sight of their leader bleeding. Adrian stepped forward, his gun steady, his voice like ice. "This ends now. Walk away or join him in the dirt." The men hesitated. Then, one by one, they backed away, disappearing into the shadows, leaving Marcus writhing on the floor. Amina rushed to him, dropping to her knees. "Marcus, please, stop this. You don't have to keep going down this path." He looked up at her, his eyes glassy with pain and rage. "You'll never understand. You'll always be weak, just like her." Her heart broke, but she knew then. There was no saving him. Adrian pulled her gently to her feet. "Leave him." He chose his side. Marcus's voice rasped behind them, full of venom even as his strength ebbed. "This isn't over. Not for either of you." But Amina didn't look back. She let Adrian lead her out into the dawn, leaving the broken church and her broken brother behind. They walked for hours, silent, the weight of the night pressing heavy on their shoulders. Finally, in the golden light of morning, they stopped on a bridge overlooking the city. Adrian leaned against the railing, his face pale, his body exhausted. Amina stood beside him, the wind tugging at her torn clothes, her heart still pounding with fear and grief. At last, he spoke. "You could have run. You should have, but you stayed." She looked at him, tears brimming in her eyes. "Because I had to." "Because you're not the only one my mother hurt. She left scars on me too, but I won't let her choices define me. I'm not her, Adrian. I'll never be her." For a long moment, he just stared at her, his eyes searching, testing. Then something shifted. The suspicion, the bitterness. It cracked, just enough for light to break through. "You're right," he said softly. "You're nothing like her. You saved me, again and again. And for that, my life is yours." Amina's breath caught. She had never expected those words, never expected that her act of compassion, opening a trunk in the dark, would bring her here, standing beside a man whose world was so far from hers. Adrian turned toward the city, his expression resolute. "I lost everything once because I trusted the wrong face. Maybe fate sent me yours to give me a second chance." His hand brushed hers, tentative, unsure, but she didn't pull away. For the first time in years, Amina felt hope, fragile, trembling, but real. Her life had been nothing but hunger and loss. But now, standing beside the man she had saved, she realized that everything had changed. Adrian Blackwell's reaction to her face, shock, pain, disbelief, had turned her world upside down. But in the ashes of betrayal, something new was being born. Trust, redemption, and perhaps the beginning of love.